2 days ago, Donald Trump stood in front of the nation and said, Iran doesn't have radar, doesn't have anti-aircraft systems, doesn't have spotters. He said American aircraft were, quote, just floating over the top, looking for whatever we want and hitting it. 48 hours later, Iran shot down an F-15E Strike Eagle over Iranian territory. Then it shot down an A-10 Warthog near the Strait of Hormuz. Then it hit 2 American search and rescue helicopters during the mission to recover the downed crew. Then it claimed it shot down a C-130 sent in to support the rescue operation. 4 aircraft. 1 day. 0 acknowledgement from the Pentagon until it couldn't be hidden anymore. And when Trump posted a 48-hour ultimatum on social media, threatening to rain down all hell, Iran's top military commander didn't flinch. He called it a helpless, nervous, unbalanced, and stupid action, publicly, on the record. This is not a war that is nearing completion. This is a war that just entered a phase that no one in Washington has an answer for. If this channel has been cutting through the noise on this war in a way that matters to you, subscribe right now. Hit the bell. Share this. The analysis you're about to hear is the kind that the headlines aren't delivering, and it starts immediately. Start with what actually happened on April 3rd, because the sequence is extraordinary. American F-15E Strike Eagles were conducting combat operations over southwestern Iran. The F-15E is one of the most capable combat aircraft ever built. It flies fast. It carries advanced countermeasures. It is designed to survive in contested airspace. The United States Air Force has operated it for decades and lost very few to enemy fire in that entire history. On April 3rd, Iran shot one down. The 2-person crew, a pilot and a weapons systems officer, ejected safely over Iranian territory. Iranian state media immediately went live. The governor of Kogaluya and Boyar Ahmad province announced that anyone who located the downed American crew would be specially commended. Iran's government put a public reward on the heads of U.S. airmen on Iranian soil. The manhunt was broadcast on national television. 2 hours after the F-15 went down, an A-10 Thunderbolt, known as the Warthog, was in the area. It was struck by Iranian air defenses near the Strait of Hormuz. The A-10 is one of the toughest aircraft in any Air Force's inventory. It was designed specifically to absorb punishment and keep flying. It took a hit. The pilot ejected and was recovered. Then the rescue helicopters came for the F-15 crew. 2 U.S. UH-60 Blackhawks. Both were hit by Iranian ground fire during the rescue operation. Both crews were injured. Both helicopters managed to withdraw into Iraqi territory. Then, during the ongoing search for the second F-15 crew member, Iran claimed to have shot down a U.S. C-130 support aircraft over the province of Isfahan. The IRGC said it was destroyed by heavy fire from a police commando unit called the Faraj Rangers. Photos of burning wreckage appeared on Iranian state media. In a single day of operations, the United States military lost more aircraft to hostile fire than it had in the entire previous 35 days of this conflict. The pilot was hunted by Iranian forces through mountainous terrain for nearly 2 days, while a firefight raged around the rescue attempt. On Sunday, Trump posted that the missing airman, a colonel, had been rescued. He called it miraculous. It was miraculous. That is precisely the problem. Now go back to April 1st, 48 hours before all of this. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, less than 2 weeks into the war, declared that the United States had achieved total air dominance over Iran. Total, his word. Trump, in his primetime address on April 1st, went further. He said Iran has not a thing they can do to stop American aircraft. He said they have no spotters, no anti-aircraft capability, no radar. He said American planes were floating over Iran freely, hitting whatever they wanted. 48 hours later, a U.S. F-15E, one of America's premier combat aircraft, was shot down by the country that supposedly had nothing left to shoot with. A congressman named Seth Moulton, a Marine combat veteran, said the quiet part loudly on Friday. He said Trump's speech claiming total air dominance put U.S. troops at grave risk. He said directly, "The commander-in-chief doesn't know what he's talking about." That is a sitting U.S. congressman telling the American public that the president's statement about the war he is commanding is factually wrong. And the aircraft wreckage in the Iranian mountains proved the point before Moulton even finished the sentence. Here is how Iran still has the capability to shoot down American aircraft after 35 days of the most intensive bombing campaign the United States has run since the 2003 Iraq War. The official narrative has been consistent. Iran's air defenses were obliterated in the opening strikes. Its radar network was 100% annihilated. Those are the words of a U.S. military official early in the conflict. Its long-range surface-to-air missile systems were systematically hunted and destroyed. That narrative is partially true. Iran's large, fixed, long-range air defense installations were heavily degraded. The S-300 batteries that formed the backbone of Iran's conventional air defense architecture took enormous damage in the first days of the war. But Iran's doctrine was never built around fixed installations. Iran's air defense philosophy is mobile, dispersed, and redundant. Iran operated thousands of air defense systems before this war began, not hundreds, thousands. They range from shoulder-fired man-pad missiles carried by a single soldier to truck-mounted medium-range systems, to systems hidden in civilian infrastructure that require ground intelligence to locate. You cannot bomb what you cannot find. And Iran has spent 4 decades learning how to hide its military hardware. There is a dimension to this that received almost no attention in the lead-up to the war. A Financial Times investigation published in February, just before the conflict began, revealed that Iran had entered into a multi-million-dollar arms deal with Russia to acquire thousands of the Verba shoulder-fired missile system. The Verba is Russia's most modern man-portable air defense system. It fires infrared-guided missiles. It can target cruise missiles, low-flying aircraft, and drones. It is effective against the kind of low-altitude attack profiles that A-10 Warthogs use. The deal officially runs from 2027 to 2029. But the Financial Times reported that some shipments may have arrived early. Russia has also reportedly been sharing intelligence with Iran during this conflict, specifically the locations of U.S. warships and the flight paths of American aircraft. The country that the United States and Israel have been bombing for 35 days has been receiving targeting intelligence from the world's other nuclear power. Nobody in the White House has publicly addressed this. Nobody in the Pentagon has given a press briefing about what they know. And yet, American aircraft are going down. Now look at the diplomatic dimension, because it is even more revealing than the military one. On Saturday, April 4th, Trump posted on Truth Social. The language was pure Trump. He reminded everyone that he had given Iran 10 days to make a deal or open the Strait of Hormuz. He said time was running out. He gave a new countdown. 48 hours before, in his words, all hell will rain down on them. He ended the post with, "Glory be to God." Iran's response came within hours. General Ali Abdollahi Ali-Abadi, speaking for Iran's Central Military Command, the Khatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters, issued a formal statement. He called Trump's post a helpless, nervous, unbalanced, and stupid action. He then twisted the knife. He said the simple meaning of Trump's message was that the gates of hell will open for you, meaning Iran was directing the threat back at America. This was not a junior official making an offhand comment. This was a senior general in Iran's Central Military Command, responding to the U.S. president's ultimatum with a formal written statement calling that ultimatum stupid, on the record, for attribution. And Iran had already rejected the 48-hour ceasefire proposal that America floated through intermediaries. Iran's state media was unambiguous. Iran does not accept a ceasefire. The source told state media that it was not logical to enter into such a process with those who violate the agreement. This is the diplomatic situation. The U.S. president is posting ultimatums on social media. Iran's generals are calling those ultimatums stupid in formal statements. The ceasefire proposal was rejected before the ink was dry, and meanwhile, U.S. aircraft are being shot down. There is a specific intelligence failure buried in the middle of this story that has not received enough attention. On Thursday, April 3rd, the day the aircraft went down, a U.S. intelligence assessment was published. It revealed that Iran still possesses approximately half of its missile launchers and approximately half of its kamikaze drone inventory. Half, still operational. After 35 days of relentless American and Israeli bombing, Trump and Hegseth had used the language of obliteration from day one. Iran's missiles were being obliterated. Its arsenal was being destroyed. Its capacity to fight was being decimated. Those words were used daily, in official statements, in press briefings, in a primetime address to the nation. The intelligence assessment said half of Iran's missile launchers are still functioning. When the analyst community processes that number alongside the claim of total air dominance, and then looks at an F-15E burning in the Iranian mountains, what they see is a gap. A dangerous, potentially deadly gap between what is being said publicly and what is actually happening on the ground. A researcher at King's College London said the shooting down of the F-15 directly undercuts the statements made by Trump and Hegseth about controlling Iranian airspace. Not complicates, not challenges, undercuts. Understand what Iran's 5 conditions for ending this war actually are, because they reveal something important about how this conflict ends. Iran has received Trump's 15-point peace proposal. It has publicly stated its counter-proposal. Here is what Iran is demanding. First, a complete halt to all aggression and assassinations by the United States and Israel. Full stop. Not a pause, not a ceasefire, a complete end to all offensive operations on all fronts, including against Hezbollah. Second, concrete mechanisms guaranteeing the war cannot be reimposed on Iran. Binding security guarantees from the country that just assassinated their supreme leader. Third, formal recognition of Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. Iran wants legal control over the most important oil shipping choke point on Earth. Not joint control, not negotiated access, sovereign control. Fourth, full war reparations. Iran wants the United States and Israel to pay for the damage inflicted on Iranian territory, infrastructure, and civilian lives during this conflict. Fifth, a comprehensive end to the war across all fronts, including the 2026 Lebanon war against Hezbollah. Trump's conditions were give up nuclear weapons, dismantle nuclear capabilities, open the strait. Iran's conditions were pay us for the war, give us the strait, and stop bombing everyone we support. These two positions are not close. They are not in the same negotiating universe. Pakistan attempted to mediate. That effort collapsed. Iran refused to meet U.S. officials in Islamabad. Qatar, which hosts the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East and has served as a quiet diplomatic backchannel for decades, was pressured to become a mediator. Qatar refused. It is watching Iranian missiles rain down on its territory and has no interest in being caught between Washington and Tehran. The diplomatic runway is shorter than anyone in the White House is publicly acknowledging. Here is the domestic American picture. Because the political pressure on Trump to end this war is now colliding with a battlefield that is fighting back harder than the official statements suggested it could. 13 confirmed American service members killed before the aircraft were shot down. The number is certainly higher now. Gas prices passed $4 per gallon and rising. Brent crude oil above $104 per barrel. The Nikkei down over 2%. South Korea's market down nearly 4%. Asian economies that had nothing to do with starting this war absorbing its economic shockwaves. Trump's own internal polling, conducted by his personal pollster Tony Fabrizio, showed the war growing increasingly unpopular in its third week. That was before the aircraft were shot down, before an American colonel spent 2 days hiding in the mountains of Iran while Iranian ground forces hunted him with a government reward on his head, before the rescue mission that required dozens of aircraft, a firefight in broad daylight, and what Trump himself called a miracle. White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles told aides to be more honest with the president about the domestic political risks. Multiple public supporters of Trump began criticizing a conflict with no clear end in sight. A $1.5 trillion defense budget request for fiscal year 2027, a 40% increase over last year, was released on the same day the aircraft went down. The Golden Dome missile defense system, naval expansion, munitions stockpiles. The bill for this war, in every sense, is arriving simultaneously. Step back from the daily events and look at the strategic architecture. The war began with a simple premise: destroy Iran's military capability fast and decisively, obliterate its missile program, sink its navy, which is now 92% destroyed, eliminate its nuclear program, sever its proxy network. Achieve all of this before the economic pain, the political backlash, and the diplomatic fallout become unmanageable. That theory of the war required two things to be true. Iran's conventional military had to be as degraded as the official statement said, and Iran's will to resist had to collapse under the weight of that degradation. Neither has happened. Iran still has half its missile launchers. It still has functional air defense systems capable of downing American F-15s. It still has a proxy network with Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and the PMF in Iraq. It has rejected every ceasefire proposal. It is publicly calling American ultimatums stupid, and it is offering a pilot reward to civilians through its state broadcaster. This is not the behavior of a military that is collapsing. This is the behavior of a military that is bleeding, but calculating, that believes it is fighting a battle of exhaustion, not attrition. Iran does not need to win militarily. Iran needs to make winning cost more than America is willing to pay. Every aircraft that goes down, every pilot that Iran hunts through mountain terrain on live television, every day the Strait of Hormuz stays closed, every dollar oil rises, every cent gas climbs at American pumps, every dead service member. These are not battlefield defeats for Iran. They are instruments of its strategy. Trump said on April 1st, 2 days before the aircraft went down, that American planes were just floating over the top, looking for whatever we want, and we're hitting it. On April 3rd, an F-15E went down in the mountains of southwestern Iran. On April 4th, Iran's Central Military Command called Trump's 48-hour ultimatum helpless, nervous, unbalanced, and stupid. On April 5th, the second pilot was rescued in what Trump described as miraculous, after 2 days of firefights in enemy territory. The story being told in official Washington is a story of dominance, of obliteration, of a war nearing its end. The story happening on the ground is a downed F-15 burning in the Iranian mountains. It is a colonel being hunted for 2 days by a government that offered rewards to civilians for his capture. It is an intelligence assessment that says Iran still has half its missiles. It is a general calling the U.S. president's ultimatum stupid in a formal military statement. It is ceasefire talks that have reached a dead end, with mediators walking away and Iran demanding sovereignty over the world's most important oil route as a condition for peace. Both stories are happening simultaneously, Only one of them tells you what comes next. If this gave you the picture that the official statements aren't drawing, share it right now. One click puts this analysis in front of someone who needs it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is exactly the work your subscription makes possible. The next video is already being built. Do not miss it.